Watching the weekend for a chance of storms. That's all coming up.
Plus, an expert from the Alabama Forestry Commission is here giving us an update on the wildfire situation across the state. Did last week's rain help the drought situation? Plus, what NASA thinks it found using one of its most powerful telescopes. Why something you can't see is such a big deal.
Live on your side. First Alert Weather Extra starts right now.
And welcome back into Weather Extra. Tania, were you up early watching the eclipse today?
No, but I saw the pictures.
Yeah, a lot of folks were out and about. I know the clouds, that was an issue for some areas earlier today. Yeah, so thankfully right now the weather, at least the temperatures have improved. It was a little chilly out there for especially East Alabama earlier today, but you can see a lot more upper 60s and still hanging on to some 70s here for us right now across West Alabama. Tuscaloosa, 76 degrees right now. Birmingham's at 69, 67 degrees for us right now from Anniston. But as we look back to the west, one of the next big things we're going to be watching, a lot of active weather happening across the middle part of the country. It's that time of the year, right? But we're seeing a marginal level 1 risk for today for several states back to the north and west. That risk starts to ramp up tomorrow, and even by Friday, we're still going to see, mostly west of the Mississippi River, the more organized risk of severe weather. But model data is telling us that this weekend, beginning around Saturday, this activity is going to start working its way in our direction, and I think what's left of some of these storms could reach us perhaps by midday Saturday before this all kind of stalls out this weekend. I don't expect a weekend washout, but there will be certainly a better chance for scattered storms by Saturday and into Sunday. So just stay alert for that threat of lightning, some locally heavy rain. Right now it looks like by Saturday afternoon, evening, things settle down overnight, and then we could see some pop-ups again later on Sunday. And that setup sort of sticks around very spring-like through early next week as we spring ahead on Sunday. So something that we'll be watching there in the long-range forecast. Here's a live look from Birmingham. Again, if you're headed out for this evening, temperature-wise, you can see through 9 o'clock in the 60s. Overnight lows tonight will be tumbling down into the 50s. So earlier today, we went from a blood moon to this. This was just a few moments ago. Brandon Still, our weather watcher in Oxford, sharing the sunset, just a glowing red out there, likely from another burn happening nearby and some hazy conditions. But just in case you missed it, earlier today, we had the total lunar eclipse 2026, and Mike Tucker, one of our incredible photojournalists, capturing this view there, and that's a time lapse. So we're going through different scans here so you can see it happen, and notice how the moon takes on that red glow. That's why we call it the name blood moon, and it was dropping to the west on the horizon. We did have some clouds that moved through at times, and even when you typically see a full moon, when you see it close to the horizon, that moonlight has to travel through so much more atmosphere, and all the gases in the atmosphere help to enhance, and it can kind of trick the eye to make the moon appear much larger. So we kind of got best of both. If you were able to catch it earlier today with the moon setting there on the horizon. There's another partial lunar eclipse coming up later this year. We'll be talking a lot more about what's happening in the night sky all coming up. But March means change when it comes to the weather, from highs and lows moderating to an increase in rain. Meteorologist Matt Daniels shows you what you can typically expect throughout the month of March.
Well, we're in March already, and that means we can see lots of changes as we start to transition away from winter and into spring. And here's a look at our average high temperatures for the months from January through December. And typically our average high for this time of the year is in the mid 60s. We'll end up on average in the mid 70s for highs in April. So we'll break it down for you for every 5 days in the month of March. Typically, we'll see our average high right around 63 to start out the month. And by the end of March, our average high is usually in the lower 70s. So we can get pretty warm in March. Here's a look at the hottest temperatures recorded in March in Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and Anniston. We've never hit 90 in the month of March, but we hit 89 in Birmingham and in Anniston. And for Birmingham, that happened in 2017 and 1982. Tuscaloosa, the hottest it's been for you in the month of March, was 88 back in 2017 and 1982 as well, and 89 in Anniston back in 1974 and in 1963. What about low temperatures? This is when we start to see temperatures trend above that freezing point. So instead of seeing lows in the 30s, we typically see lows in the 40s and eventually 50s as we make our way into April. So here's a breakdown of those average low temperatures. Typically, as we start out the month, our average low temperatures in the 40s, low 40s, and then eventually upper 40s by the end of March. But it can get very cold around here as well. Freezing temperatures still very possible. In fact, check out the coldest we've ever recorded. 2 degrees in Birmingham, 12 in Tuscaloosa and Anniston. This date you probably recognize that because that's from the blizzard of '93, the storm of the century. Gave us the snow and followed by very cold temperatures. And you can probably guess when it comes to the snowiest, highest snowfall totals for the month of March, that also happened in 1993. 13 inches in Birmingham and Anniston and almost 4 inches of snow recorded in Tuscaloosa. And on top of that, March can be very wet and very wild when it comes to the active weather pattern. Of course, severe weather season ramps up. And check out how much rain was recorded in 1980 in Birmingham. For the month of March, almost 16 inches of rain. In 1976, almost 20 inches of rain in Tuscaloosa and over 18 inches of rain fell in Anniston back in 1977. So March can be very interesting. Of course, we'll keep you here. And of course, through the WBRC First Alert Weather app with all those details, we make our way through the month.
Welcome back into First Alert Weather Extra. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Tania Michelle, and hey, we spring forward. March the 8th, 5 days away. St. Patrick's Day is 14 days away. That's March the 17th, and Easter is on the 5th of April, 33 short days away. But I can tell you one thing that we're all enjoying. We're enjoying the warmth. This is a look at your hour forecast. Tomorrow, temperatures should reach mid to even upper 70s and maybe even some low 80s by Wednesday afternoon. But a first alert for increasing humidity levels. It's going to feel a little more muggy out there as we get closer to the weekend. We're tracking our next rain and storm chances around Saturday and Sunday, but there could be an isolated storm, maybe a few showers around for us as early as Friday. We'll be breaking down those returning rain chances coming up when we take a look at that 10-day here on Weather Extra in just a bit. Wes?
All right, Tania, last week's rain was a welcome sight to forest rangers throughout Alabama, but how much did it really help? Ethan Barrett is a fire analyst with the Alabama Forestry Commission. In the interest of transparency, I have to let you know that he's also my cousin, and glad to have Ethan here with us. He's here to get us up to date on the wildfire situation across the state. Ethan, good to see you. Great to have you here. And, you know, some places received some rainfall last week, but we did have some situations where we had some days with red flag warnings, and we still saw some of those fires that were happening around the state. Could you clarify on days like that, how were those decisions made?
So for us, the red flag conditions are based on temperatures, you know, low humidities, less than 25%, winds that they're going to be 14 miles an hour gusts or gusts of 20 miles an hour plus. And then it looks at our staffing across the region, how that goes into it. So that's what kind of drives a red flag warning. And for us, those are days that we watch, because usually if we meet those criteria, we do see an uptick in fire behavior associated with it.
Now, these prescribed burns, I mean, this is necessary for the environment. Just talk about, especially here in Alabama, why this is so critical to have these here in our state.
So when you look at it, with us doing what we call them fuel reduction burns, that's removing the hazardous fuels from them, you know, across the landscape. That's making fires more manageable if they do occur. And then you're getting into management objectives, wildlife enhancement, timber enhancement, stuff like that. That's where prescribed burning really plays a big part in that. And for us, if we took prescribed fire off the environment, there would still be fire. We'd still have wildfires, but they would be harder to control. They'd show us more resistance control because of the buildup in the fuels.
So again, just kind of going back, I know we're in a drought right now, and we've been recommending no burning, no burning, no burning, but just talk about what goes into this. I mean, you've got guys that are experts in this, right? What are some things you look at, like how will this fire travel, breaks? Do you kind of prepare ahead of time?
So whenever we go in and do prescribed burning, we write what's called a prescription. The prescription is what do we have to safely and effectively put fire across the environment. We look at, what temperature and wind speed is going to make the fire be a certain height, move a certain way, and then we look at the drought loading. If we base it off the Keach Byram drought index, or the upper 8 inches of soil, and that tells us if the KPDI is too high, that leads to secondary fire effects. You may have mortality in the stand. So when we write those prescriptions, that is what it takes to put fire on the ground. So if we say it has to be, wind speed of 5 miles an hour, humidity no lower than 30%. If the wind speed's 10 miles an hour, the humidity is 10%, that's a no-go day. We scrub it and you wait till those conditions occur for us to do it.
And then at night, of course, humidity goes back up, helps you guys out.
Yes.
So that's the thing about relative humidity. It fluctuates during the day. I always look at the dew point, right, when it comes to that. We'll talk a little bit about, you mentioned earlier about just not only the importance of this, but for future generations out there. I've always wanted to, we have a lot of meteorology students that intern with us, but just talk about for students out there that wanted to get more involved with the forestry division, what you guys do, learn more about this.
So, when we get it, we have several different ways. We have what's called the registered foresters. They go get their forestry degree. They do the management plans and how to manage the forest. And then you have the ranger criteria. Rangers are normally the fire suppression. They still do forest management work, but there's different routes. If you want to come straight out of high school and go into the ranger, there's that avenue. Or if you want to go to get a 4-year degree and come out, there's that avenue as well.
It's very important for what we do. Is this the time of year, though, specifically when these prescribed burns happen? It just seems like it's always out of winter and in the spring.
And normally that's what we're doing is you look at this time of year, there is the best way to prescribe burn, especially longleaf. If it's in a growing stage, you want to do it while it's still cool enough to not do damage to the stand, and you're trying to get that fuel reduction in early in the year while the trees are still dormant. And then you will move in if you're wanting to suppress some understory in the stand and opening up the stand. You'll do what's called growing season burns. So we'll move further into April, kind of get it whenever there's everything's waking up, so you'll get all that underbrush out of the way.
All right, well, definitely necessary. I know a lot of questions out there, especially with as dry as it's been here lately. But listen, Ethan, great seeing you, my friend. We'll have Ethan back on and talk a lot more about this. Very interesting to always dive more into what you guys do. But we're going to dive more into the forecast. We're going to dive more into the possibility of some rain and storms coming up this weekend. Got to watch out for that. So we'll see you back here. We'll have the 10-day forecast later on Weather Extra.
Explore the wonders of weather with Weather in the Classroom. Scan the QR code now to help your kids soar to new heights with Soar with 6.
All right, let's just go ahead and debut a new segment right here. How about a segment called Name That Cloud? All right, Brandon Lastille over in the Oxford area sharing this earlier today. Actually, this was from Jacob Chapman, actually. I've actually got that wrong. Weather watcher Jacob Chapman, yes, one of our storm spotters, but Brandon shared the sunset earlier. But Jacob said, what's going on here? Is this a roll cloud? If you saw this earlier today, I've had a lot of folks ask me about this. These are stratocumulus undulatus clouds and little ripples there. If you look at the satellite view from space, almost look like waves across Alabama, but that's what you were looking at, not necessarily the classic roll cloud, although very interesting. Everything was just so well organized. Cloud pattern right now, or at least right before sunset, it was a bit more messy across Alabama. But as we move through the overnight hours, temperature-wise, we'll see lows in the 50s with partly to mostly cloudy sky. There's 10 o'clock this evening, and notice that early morning out the door, temperatures in the 50s. Not too cold, a little chill out there early, especially for East Alabama, but we all heat up big time tomorrow. Be ready for those highs around 80 degrees during the afternoon. And I mentioned this earlier, the pollen levels have already ramped up, the tree pollen, so some good car wash weather. If you're starting to notice that little bit of pollen on the car already, the breeze tomorrow will be out of the south direction, but we'll have that south flow that's really kicked in, and that south wind will be a story over the next couple days. Thursday and Friday, as moisture levels go up, dew points rise, there might be some patchy fog during the morning hours early. Thursday and Friday, some morning low clouds, but we'll break into some sunshine each afternoon with high temperatures in the 80s. Again, this is what we're going to be watching. This is the long-range severe weather outlook for organized severe weather for Friday, and already you can see an elevated risk, but this is still for states back to the west. We have a ridge of high pressure, which is holding a lot of this at bay for right now, most of it west of the Mississippi River. But what will happen, eventually some of this will start to eat away at that high pressure ridge and make its way in here towards the end of the week. We're starting to see those signals in the global data. Models agree that by Saturday afternoon, we'll at least see a chance for some scattered rainfall and thunderstorms. And here it comes. You can see Friday into Saturday, not quite a first alert weather day level, as it looks like this might be weakening as it moves in. We'll keep an eye on this. Just know there could be some more impactful storms perhaps this weekend. Watching Saturday, not a total washout, but by the afternoon, you see how we got this weakening line that moves in. That's some of the high resolution data. You're getting a first look at some of the high res guidance there as we look towards the end of the week. And then this just basically washes out, weakens over the state, and we could see some redevelopment as we go into the day on Sunday. And then Monday and Tuesday, again, no one day to me at this point looks like a total washout, although we'll see scattered storms Saturday and into Sunday. And then Monday and Tuesday, perhaps a few spotty showers. Temperatures back off slightly. We'll see still some 80s on the map through this weekend, some 70s there into early next week. Now, we go beyond the 7-day forecast. A week from Wednesday, the European model's been very robust in wanting to bring in some heavier rain and storms, and that could be one of those days where we could see a more impactful system. We just need to wait and see if more data agrees. Some global data doesn't show quite as an impactful system to NIA as we look ahead down the road. The GFS in particular, you and I were talking about, shows maybe some scattered showers and storms into that following weekend with temperatures staying in the 70s. But if we do indeed see these models lock in on a cold snap coming up later next week, we've got to watch that system for a threat of some stormy weather next week.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Wes. And if we do see a stronger system move through, like you were mentioning, it could be a little bit cooler. But overall, when we look at our temperature outlook, March the 11th through the 17th, will be slightly above average, not extremely above average, but anywhere between close to average or just right above it. So still looking fairly warm as we get into the middle of the month of March. And I can show you here, it looks like that cold air is going to try to make its way into central Alabama, and it may get close. We may see a cooler morning. This is showing us March the 14th, Saturday morning could be a little bit chillier. But as we continue through the middle of the month and getting closer to the second half of the month, you're starting to see more of that warm air building back in across central Alabama, more of a southerly flow. So we'll keep our eyes on any cold snaps that we see in the future. But I do see above average rainfall across many states, across the United States. Below average rainfall for the West Coast, for the East Coast, a different story. And that includes us here across central Alabama. So we're tracking a little bit more wet weather as we bring in closer to St. Patrick's Day, March 11th through March the 17th. We'll keep you up to date on those rain and storm chances, but here's a quick look at that 7-day forecast. We'll give you another look at that 10-day coming up later on First Alert Weather Extra. But NASA says it found a galaxy that might have more dark matter than any ever discovered. Scientists say the Hubble Space Telescope detected what's being called Candidate Dark Galaxy 2. It might be made up of at least 99.9% dark matter. That matter is invisible, but researchers have ways of inferring it's there. Dark matter is thought to make up about 27% of the universe.
Teachers, promote literacy in your class by scheduling a book reading with WBRC. Scan the QR code now to help your kids soar to new heights with Soar with 6.
It's picture time here on Weather Extra. It's when folks send in pictures through our First Alert Weather app, and we get to show them right here on TV. You get to be a part of the team here. Well, we knew that this was coming. We had that blood moon that was out there early this morning as we had that total lunar eclipse. And this was sent in by Laura Bradford. I guess this is from her phone that she sent this in. She was able to get this picture just before the clouds started to roll in. Vanessa, this is actually from Vanessa Culpepper, I think. She is our executive producer on for the morning shows here on Good Day Alabama. She sent this in with her iPhone, saw the blood moon. So those were from some phones, and they're pretty good pictures. But check this one out. Wow, Jason Howard, and I think he's got a little bit better camera lens.
sent this in, but man, that is a great looking shot of the blood moon. Jason, man, you really captured it. And we'll just finish out. Not everybody was taking pictures of the moon. This is Julie Whitley. She was going crappie fishing on the Alabama River early this morning, and what a pristine view that is. Got the outboard motor here, and they're going on down, and in the wake of the boat, we see the sunrise on another day. Isn't that pretty? Well, if you want to be a part of Weather Extra and send in your photos, you can either just do an app search for WBRC First Alert or just scan that QR code, and we'd love to see your pictures right here on TV.
Well, tonight at 7, catch WBRC 6 News now on the WBRC streaming app with host Jazz Williams. First Alert weather, live updates, and trending stories you need before the night is over. Don't miss what's happening right now. WBRC News now at 7. Search for WBRC in your TV's app store to download. Oh, yeah. We got a weather visit to tell you about. Meteorologist Matt Daniel visiting Highland School Kindergarten earlier today. Lots of smiles out there in Tania. They talked about the water cycle, and they even made some snow. How about that?
I know they love that on today's warm day.
They talked about tornadoes, which students loved, and it's a good time of year to remind about severe weather safety. But we love the Blue Devils and want to give them a big shout out.
That is so sweet. Listen, Wes, the one thing I always ask the kids, I say, what's your favorite season? They always say winter because they love the snow.
Oh, yeah, snow.
It gets them.
Yeah, we have to sing the Snowy Day song every time. We certainly do. But hey, 10-day forecast. Watching Saturday and Sunday, I think you and I both can agree on this. Saturday afternoon, better chance for some scattered storms.
Oh, yeah. We're going to keep an eye on it. We'll have updates tonight at 9.